She's a page right out of the history books, the legendary steamer Delta Queen. She is an American classic, authentic in every detail. From her long, inviting stage to her giant red paddle wheel, the Delta Queen is instantly recognizable as this country's oldest continuously operating overnight passenger steamboat. Right down to her steel hull plating, she has everything the quintessential sternwheeler should have. A tall, crowned smokestack, 4 decks of polished brass, hand-carved rare woods, and Tiffany-style glasswork, 2 mighty steam engines, and of course, her world-famous steam calliope. With an impressive history to match, the steamer Delta Queen offers an experience unlike any other, precisely because of what she is. So it may come as a surprise to many that her travels on America's inland waterways could soon come to an end. Since 1970, the Delta Queen has operated under temporary exemptions from an international convention named the Safety of Life at Sea Act, commonly referred to as SOLAS. Called into question is the matter of the boat's safety as a vessel carrying a wooden superstructure. With her current exemption expiring in November of 2008, these might be her final days on our rivers, and scenes like this one at Dubuque's River's Edge Plaza would become a thing of the past. Fortunately, a grassroots movement, the Save the Delta Queen campaign, dedicates itself to promoting the tradition of overnight steamboating. Similar to the campaign in 1970 for her historical preservation, the 2007-2008 Save the Delta Queen campaign aims to keep this piece of Americana afloat for years to come. Built in 1927 for use on the Sacramento River, the Delta Queen moved her home port to Cincinnati and most recently to New Orleans. During her years in California waters, she also served as a yard ferry boat in World War II. She was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1989, being recognized as one of only 2 sternwheel river passenger boats operating under steam and the sole remaining Western River's overnight passenger boat. In 1966, as noted by the National Register of Historic Places, SOLAS threatened the Delta Queen's continued operation because of her wooden superstructure, but public outcry caused officials to grant an exemption. In fact, the true issue existed in a piece of legislation that amended SOLAS, called Public Law 89777. PL 89777 states that no passenger vessel of the United States of 100 gross tons or over, having berth or stateroom accommodations for 50 or more passengers, shall be granted a certificate of inspection by the Coast Guard unless the vessel is constructed of fire-retardant material. Until now, bills exempting the Delta Queen have passed nearly unanimously in the Congress. However, on August 1, 2007, the Delta Queen's operator, Majestic America Line, announced in a press release that the U.S. Congress has decided that the Delta Queen should not continue operating on America's rivers beyond 2008. Without the extension from Congress, the Delta Queen will not be able to continue cruise voyages on the river. Less than a week later, Joseph Uberoth, president of Majestic America Line's parent company, Ambassadors International, revealed that the exemption had not even been brought to the Congress' attention, instead being dismissed by Minnesota Representative James Oberstar and Hawaii Senator Daniel Inouye. In a conference call, Uberoth stated that Oberstar strongly opposed the extension under any circumstances and would not allow the legislation to be considered. Senator Inouye, chairman of the Commerce Committee, has made it clear that with the Seafarers International Union's opposition, the extension would not be considered by the Senate. Oberstar later told the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that Congress would never exempt a particular 747 aircraft from FAA standards, and we should not exempt a passenger vessel carrying hundreds of sleeping people from Coast Guard safety standards. It is worth noting that the actions of Representative Oberstar, chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, parallel those of one Representative Edward Garmitz, chairman of the Merchant Marine Committee in 1970. Garmitz had, in committee, ended amendments to exempt the steamboat 25 times before they ever reached the floor of the House. As some supporters of the Delta Queen have stated, moving a bill to the floor for a vote is particularly subject to the slow-moving actions of committees, and others have called for congressional representatives to respect basic democratic rules and let the people's representatives vote on the exemption for the Delta Queen. Some consider Oberstar's concern about the safety of the Delta Queen valid, and the fact that the wooden-frame Delta Queen is allowed to operate unsafe. However, the boat's operators and crew have always maintained that the primary concern aboard the vessel is safety first. As one author has noted, there isn't a persuasive safety reason to shut her down. The noted steamboat designer and historian Captain Alan Bates offers these insights into the role of safety aboard the Delta Queen. The fact that a wooden cabin contributes to flames and smoke does not present a true picture of the overall safety of the vessel. It has long been known to actuarial surveyors that wooden structures often survive longer in catastrophic fires than inflammable structures, which quickly fail or even melt. The Safety of Life at Sea Act assumes that ships are remote from land or other vessels. The Delta Queen can be landed in minutes over the entire route she traverses. Other vessels can be reached by radio to render assistance, and are seldom more than a few miles away. The boat and its crew are rigorously inspected and tested by the United States Coast Guard at frequent intervals. Her certificate must be renewed every year after a thorough inspection, and every crew member is trained and has a specific station to man and duty to perform in the event of fire. Fire and boat drills are conducted weekly or oftener, and every passenger is required to participate. In addition, the boat is patrolled by watchmen several times each hour. They are required to check in at many key stations. Flame-resistant fabrics, including some developed and approved by NASA, itself a government agency, are used throughout the boat. The boat is protected at all times by a modern and efficient fire detection and sprinkler system, all inspected and approved according to Coast Guard standards. To require a river vessel to meet the standards of a ship far from land and aid is unrealistic. The root of the Safety of Life at Sea law was the loss of a Spanish ship hundreds of miles at sea, governed by rules far less stringent than those of the United States Coast Guard. Finally, the vessel has operated safely for more than 80 years. In all that time, the boat has not been responsible for even one passenger death. In addition to Captain Bates, other supporters have offered additional arguments. One is that, interestingly, her superstructure is not entirely made of wood. In fact, wooden columns inside the boat have been reinforced with metal structures, offering what is arguably the best stability of superstructure for a river-going vessel like the Delta Queen. Another safety advantage is that all of the passenger staterooms on the boat have doors leading directly to open deck. This differs from nearly every other cruise vessel in the country, whose regulations are based on longer evacuation routes because of internal staterooms and long corridors. For all these reasons, one recognizes that the provisions of SOLAS and PL 89777 pertain only to ocean-going vessels, and that boats on the inland waterways have very different safety concerns. Other supporters of the Delta Queen have noted that it is really the passenger's decision when it comes to choosing to book passage on the boat. Each passenger is made fully aware of the boat's composition and, in compliance with SOLAS, willingly signs a statement that he or she understands that the boat doesn't meet some of the law's requirements. In addition to historically being a safe vessel, it is an undeniable fact that the Delta Queen is an economic boon for each of the 76 river communities she visits. She carries more than 200 passengers and crew, the majority of whom disembark from the boat to contribute to local businesses. Many passengers plan return trips to these cities and towns. In addition, she provides employment and generates much economic activity.